You've probably heard the commonly repeated dating advice that texting is for logistics only, or that texting is just for setting dates. And that advice may be screwing up your prospects in the dating market. It's boomer advice and it's incorrect. Not only am I going to show you how it's tell you how it's incorrect, but I'm going to show you how it's incorrect through some examples. All right, welcome to the pod class Apex Underground. Hopefully, maybe by next week, I'll be on Rumble and some other platforms. So, we're going to talk about texting and talk about how it's not just for setting dates, okay? And we're going to get into where that came from, all right, and why that's there. So, look, and I'm going to try to get through this rather quickly, but look, it came from it's outdated advice. Okay. So what happened was pre when texting like was the thing. You had dating coaches back in the 90s. We're talking about the phone is just for setting dates. So it started off with the phone is for setting dates. I remember seeing that. I think a guy named Dr. Love and some really of the old like PUAs, but like we're talking like late 90s where you had dudes who would try to the big thing was to get the phone number. That was like a big score or a big close. Now with social media and Snapchat and DMs, like phone number is not that big of a deal anymore. There was a time, you guys may, some of you old timers might remember when ghosting was not as popular as it is today. But ghosting is like a common thing nowadays, right? But there was a time when it wasn't, like where a girl would feel obligated to answer her phone or to, if when texting was a thing that she would feel obligated to text back. I mean, hell, there's a time when you got charged per text. You only had so many minutes on your cell phones. I mean, you guys remember those times, right? And so like it was from that era and even from prior to that where like guys would call a girl or leave a message or a voice message, which nobody should be leaving voice messages anymore. Right. And they would be figuring out what to say on the voice message or whatever. And they would call and then they would get her on the phone and then they would try to like talk to this girl on the phone and they would never close to the actual meetup. And that grew during texting when guys were not closing for meetups. They were just sitting there and trying to like build some sort of relationship over the phone or build some sort of relationship via a text medium. And that is what that advice is speaking out against. And that is true. You're not there to build a relationship over the phone or over text with a girl. Your goal is really to get to the next step, which is the meetup. However, it's to get from point A to point B like that. It's not just going to be a logistics only conversation. And so it went from texting is, or, the phone is for setting dates, blah, 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 to get, because you guys, so many guys are dumb, right? So like, if you're listening to this, you can't be a freaking dope. Okay. You have to be a smarter, like this much smarter. I'm not that smart. So we're talking like this much. Okay. You just have to kind of not be stupid. But some of these guys and some of you guys, no offense, are so socially okay, that like you follow these little sayings. Like, and this is where Red Pill will have these sayings. And some of these sayings are kind of dumb, right? But you need them so you don't get yourself in trouble because you're too dumb in the beginning phases of trying to learn how women work, right? To like not have a dumb rule. All right. So guys will just sort of parrot. I'm sure when I posted this video on Twitter, people, I'll get the dum-dums that will get on there and go, texting is for logistics only. Texting is for logistics only. I need a stupid saying in order to prevent myself from being stupid. And then these people want to sound like they know shit. They don't fucking know anything. They're not dating anybody. They don't fucking know what they're doing. Right. And so many people don't know shit. and they're giving advice out there, and then and they're jumping into comments, and I'm sure I'll get a fair amount of them. All right, it's fucking stupid, and this is bad advice, and it's stupid the way that we say it. And now look, I'm speaking to my friends out there too, because there's a lot of guys who I'm friends with, okay, who I've been on their shows, they've been on my shows, I like them, they're cool, they have game, they're good at it. It's not even criticizing that, but these little sayings, some of them are so stupid. We just need to get rid of it. All right, because it causes people to do dumb things. Right. So the mindset or paradigm of texting is for logistics only causes dudes to be socially uncalibrated over text because it's just the wrong message, right? So they end up not having the calibration in order to function like a human being, communicate like a person over this text medium to get this person to eventually go out with them, right? And so like you just can't be stupid. And some of these sayings are dumb. And that's how it started, though, by the way. So it started with some legitimacy because dudes were using the phone in order to try to build these relationships. I know that guys still do that for, today. That's not what I advise. But that doesn't mean we go completely the opposite direction where you're socially uncalibrated and a big dum-dum. All right. This girl doesn't know you. And so she has no reason for most of you guys to separate you, from the pack. There's no reason for her to choose you over anybody else. And so she's going to need some level of kind of comfort and communication and game in order to, and attractive communication in order for her to feel comfortable meeting up with you. Now, back to it, but see, that's another thing too. The dating coach market, right, is riddled with people who just parrot what other people say. So like now people parrot this. This is when you do a search on YouTube on this, you won't find something saying that texting is not for logistics only. And it's not because I'm wrong. I'm fucking right. Okay. It's everybody else is wrong. And I'm being goddamn serious too. Like I'm being absolutely serious. I get tired of these dudes who don't do well with women, right? Just parroting advice. And then some of my friends who parrot it, it's like, here's what happens. So their game is good and stuff, right? They saw this stuff probably early on too, and then parroted it and then got good with their game. And when you look at their behavior, they don't just text for logistics only anyway. They really don't. But what they do is they'll use it, like they'll say, so a lot of my friends would say like, well, it's not, it's just so you keep your mind on the meetup, whatever. And that's the argument behind it. Well, by saying texting is for logistics only, it keeps the mind on the meetup. Like, okay, but it's not for logistics only. It's an untrue statement, right? Because you won't get to the meetup unless you build an emotional buy-in for this meetup or this next step. So although your goal is the meetup, in order to get there, what texting actually is for is building enough buy-in. We could call it an emotional buy-in, which is a feeling of wanting to take the next step. Okay. She's bought into the next step. That's what your texting is for. Your texting is for buying into that, getting her to buy into it. Right now, if you can do that by just sticking to logistics, and I'll talk about today and it will show examples of when that's the case. Great. Okay. But most of the time, that's not going to be the case for you. All right. Or for me, for that matter, for anybody. Most of the time, there's going to be some conversation that's going to happen. You're going to have to build some kind of rapport. You're going to have to build some form of connection over the text medium. Now, girls born before 1990, sure, they're more susceptible to logistic only setups, really, and sticking mostly to that because they remember a time when they weren't dating through the text medium, right? They didn't grow up in front of screens the same way. But any girl, any chick younger than that, especially girls in their 20s nowadays, I mean, good luck. How do I know a dude does not hook up with girls between the age of, in her 20s or even early 30s, how do I know that his dating market is above 35 when he says and believes things like texting is for logistics only? No, it's not. Okay. Now, if your girlfriend's in her mid 30s or later, or 40s or 50s, sure, you've gotten some success with that. There's other reasons people will get some success with it, but don't handicap yourself with this idea. All right. You have to learn text game in order to, we'll say, increase your probability and odds of getting women that are of a higher caliber through this medium. All right. So in any case, I will continue with my points here. Just spotted this condom. I don't know what I'm talking. This comment, condom. I just said condom. This comment. Like, it's been a long day, and I don't even have that much time for this call. I need to be off in like 12 minutes for more stuff. But dude, you've changed my life since I discovered your content. Dating a girl 20 years younger was a shock to my system. Keep it coming, Paul. Thank you. I appreciate it, Leo. Thanks for the comment, bro. Not condom, but comment. Yes, dude, I'm here to help you guys. And look, I give away information for free right here. You know, now a couple things, some housekeeping things, which in the first link listed in the description of the video, go there, subscribe to my new channel. Okay. I got a frame series that's going out for free. It's going to be short to the point, but very, very good action-packed content. All right. And it's to give you guys a formula for frame and for some of these concepts that I'm talking about. The reason why is because, look, if you are paying me for a consult, I mean, I make money doing this, right? If you're paying me for a consult, or if you're doing my year-long mastermind program, for example, which is open right now, or one of my other things, I'm thinking a pickup program actually here within about a month or so. I got to see what the interest is, but there's a bunch of different things I can do for you guys. But if you're paying for something, I'd like you to have a foundation on some things first. You don't have to, but I'd like to help you and give you foundational stuff so that when I work with you, we work on higher level problems. You know what I mean? I'm not working on some stuff that you could have gotten with the right information for free on YouTube. And that's why I give a lot of information for free. A lot of you guys can be helped from the free stuff. Make sure you're on my newsletter. Talk about things that I can't talk about on YouTube here. This is now the Apex Underground podcast because it's pretty much a shadow banned channel. All right. So get on my free stuff behind the YouTube platform. Okay. As they come out, get on my other channel. And and then if you need me for something in addition to just the free stuff, well, now we can work on higher level problems. That's why I give that stuff out. All right. And so anyway, back to the point here. So instead of just railing against it, all right. So texting is not just for logistics only. It's for creating an emotional buy-in for the meetup. It's not just to get the meetup. It's to get her excited and wanting to do this meetup with you. All right. That is what it's for. And so there's a bunch of things that happen there. And I'm going to give you a full format of that. I'm going to blow through it in hopefully about 10 minutes. So in 10 minutes, I'm going to show you some text examples. I'm going to give you a format. We're going to have all kinds of stuff. All right. But bottom line is you can't be awkward over text. It's not this idea that gets promoted is that saying less is more. And if you're just like super alpha, like, hey, come meet with me. Listen, here's the thing. Girls are inundated with attention, and the hotter she is, the more attention she has. Now, there are times when sticking to logistics ends up being the thing you're doing because she already has high emotional buy-in. So, for example, if you are playing high status game, like you have 100,000 people on your Instagram, you're a celebrity, you have some notoriety, you have pictures of yourself only doing cool shit with tons of DHVs and demonstration of higher value and so on and so forth. You can drop in cleverly and ask for a meetup right away. And a lot of girls who are attractive will consider it and have a conversation with you. I will show you a way to do that. If you met a girl in person or face to face, so in other words, you met a girl at some bar, You start chatting it up or whatever. You have a decent conversation, maybe even a location change or something. She goes back to her friends before she goes. You do a number close or a close with the DM, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever her preferred communication modality is. You get that close, and then there's an opener later, right? And then you're having this conversation. If you had done some due diligence and had a good interaction with that 5 or 10 minutes you were interacting with her when you got that number, you can go right for the close. And a lot of times that'll work out because you've done the dirty work during the meetup. You've built in a lot of investment and showed yourself as a higher value, right? During that initial conversation and that face to face. So those are the two times. If you are looking like you're like 1% of the population on your social media account, and that's how you're doing it, right? Certain things like salt dating, like seeking arrangement, stuff like that, putting a high value profile up that makes you look like a 1% dude. All right, you are in a position of power and authority, and therefore the buy-in or emotional buy-in or curiosity is going to be much higher. So then you can sort of stick to more logistical stuff. But if you don't fit that, the girls that are going to meet with you, unless you're part of like not even the top 10% of like alpha good looking dudes, but we're talking like 3%. Like you could be hired in as a model somewhere, right? Like a freaking Calvin Klein model or whatever, if you're that good looking, yeah, you're top 1 to 3%. All right, maybe you're going to get some pretty decent prospects just by sticking to logistical conversations. Most of you, that is not you. That's not me either. I have blue check marks and I have some notoriety, but I'm not famous. Okay. I'm not that recognizable outside of you dudes, right? Girls are not recognizing me from my coaching platform or my Instagram, right? I look all right, but I'm not part of the 1 to 2% dudes of good looking dudes, right? I'd say I'm all right looking. I'm not stupid. I know I look okay, especially for my age, but I'm not that guy. And so most of you guys are not that guy either. And I do present myself well on my social media, but if I were I'm not a single guy, but if I were a single guy, she is probably not just jumping into the meetup without some conversation. And if that's the case for me, that's probably going to be the case for you. All right. And so she is going to want to have some conversation and some comfort. You know what I mean? If to know that she is making a good decision for the meetup. All right. So let me get into a share screen situation here. Presents. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Well. Hold on. Let me it's not want to share what I want. Oh, here we go. Share an entire screen. Let's just share the entire screen. That'll make it easier. Okay. So sharing the entire screen, let's go to this slide right here. Oh, okay, good. So we're going to go do this. Let's go full screen on this one. So this is from some text game course material. If you are in my mastermind group, you have access to this. If you've done a previous course on text game with me, you probably have access to this. Okay. I can come back to that. Let's look at this little flow chart so that you can see what I'm talking about here. Let's go slideshow. So it's a little easier and less distracting. Okay. So here's what happens over text. All right. You're going to open. All right. There's going to be some sort of opener. The opener is going to be uncharacteristic of what the other guys are doing. So you're not going to just be like, hey, okay. There's some studies that have been done on this, some research. One of the things I looked at, like 50% of people start with hey or hi. Okay. That's their big opener. So, that's pretty basic, right? Not good. All right. And then it was like, what was the other 35%? I don't remember, but it was like something else that was really basic and lame. So the best way for an opener is to observe something about the profile, about the picture, whatever. Not necessarily start off with a compliment, although, it's not necessarily bad to a compliment when you're in a position of power, but she gets so many compliments and so many hays and highs and whatever that you're not differentiating yourself. So all you have to do is just be a little different without being different in a creepy way, right? So that's your opener. Now, what your opener should do is you should, and you may have seen this chart before. I've done this YouTube video before, so we're just going to roll through it quickly. What you're going to do is you're going to create curiosity with that opener. All right. Curiosity is created based on what you're saying and how you're communicating, and how that communication is a bit uncharacteristic of what she normally gets. And then your profile and your presentation, your profile is good. So you're representing, you look higher SMV. So you look high value, right? Like a guy she might want to go out with. And your opener is something that inspires some curiosity and makes it hard for her to not respond, right? And I'll give you again a couple of examples before we finish this little thing. So from that point, all right, there's going to be a buildup, all right, and the buildup is to a close. The close is for the meetup, all right. You'll confirm the meetup, then you'll meet up with her, the date, okay. In between that, the conversation may break off. You may you may drift off and not text back or whatever in the conversation, which is okay. And also a good tactic. Or she might, and then you might reopen. All right. Or she might reopen. So there are reopeners that happen in between this. Each reopener should inspire curiosity again. A takeaway is when you've attempted to get her to meet up, maybe once or twice, and she doesn't seem to be moving along, but she is still responsive, or maybe she's become unresponsive. So at that point, you're going to send a message that kind of illustrates, without necessarily overtly saying it, hey, this is probably the last message I'm sending you. Like, you either take action, respond, show some interest, or the conversation is probably going to be over, right? And so that's that part. Now, in between, you're building up. What you're building up is what I call emotional buy-in. All right, which is her reason for wanting to meet up with you. You're building up the feeling of wanting to take that next step, which is meeting up. Yes, the goal is to meet up, but if you say something like texting is for logistics only, well, that's not true, because that's only true if she already wants to meet up with you. She doesn't know you. You're not important, okay? And neither am I. None of us are. Okay, so she doesn't see you as important, and she's got a bunch of options. Why would she just go with you someplace? Why would she just meet with you somewhere? These young girls who aren't desperate aren't doing that. Attractive women, even in their 30s, 40s, 50s, are not doing that. The ones that you'll get to meet up with you are ones that are usually really a lot lower SMV than you. Okay, so yes, you should be, seen as the better mating option because of hypergamy. We know this, but there's going to be a big gap, probably, between the chick that says yes to you with your logistic only texts, right, versus somebody who's building up curiosity, investment, and a little bit of fantasy. Okay, and so your opener makes her a little bit curious, and as she gets curious, she might ask you a question or answer one of your questions, or you get into a conversation. Maybe there's a little humor, maybe there's some interest. That's her getting more and more invested in the conversation, which leads to the meetup. Fantasy is really what you're building. You can't build necessarily seduction over text. I say seduction. That's not what I meant to say. You can't build like a relationship when you haven't met somebody. It's not a real person-to-person contact. Our bodies and brains, right? Our mammalian brain is designed to build a relationship up with somebody face to face. So when you have a text medium in between it, what you're actually doing is building the fantasy up of that person and of that relationship. It's not real yet until you've had face-to-face contact and experiences. That relationship is not real over text. All right. So you're not trying to build the relationship over text. You're not trying to get her to like you more. You're not trying to reduce your own anxiety. You're not trying to necessarily seduce her, although there is a seductive element here. But the fantasy part is part of the seduction. Like you're building this fantasy of what it would be like to be with you. All right. That's part of this. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So let me get out of this and go back here. And so we'll stop that share. Okay, cool. So that is what we're trying to do. All right. You are building up an investment for her to come meet up with you. All right. That's what texting's for. It's not for logistics only. That only works when she's already attracted to you. And if she doesn't know you and you're just meeting her off of a dating app, or if you're just connecting with her through social media or whatever, right? There is no investment yet. There's nothing to make her want to meet with you yet. Okay. It's not a warm enough. She's not a hell yes girl. Not yet. All right. Again, the exception being is if you go super high status, money, muscles, car, all up in your profile. But that's also then going to attract girls that are potentially going to want to gold dig, use you, whatever. You know what I mean? They might have sex with you. They might be party girls. They're looking for time on your boat. They're looking for selfies in your car, but they're not necessarily good prospects. So girls that are higher SMV, that might be a good match for you, that might be looking for some of the same things you're looking for. You might have to have, probably have to have more of a conversation with that person. All right. So all right. So we're going to share. I'll show you some examples here. All right. I'm sharing the screen. Actually, before I do that, let me send a message to this dude real quick. I'm supposed to be in an appointment right now. That'd be cool if he was watching. Yeah, I'm going to send him a text. Tell him I'm on YouTube right now. On YouTube. See you in a few minutes. Okay, cool. Hopefully that'll get through. Been jam-packed with appointments today. All right. A lot of good stuff though. Okay. So now let's get into, I'm going to share the screen again. Let's see, share the entire screen. Cool. Yeah, let's do that. Boom. And now let's get into, nope, that's not the one. Back to here. Is this the one? Okay, cool. Oh, yeah, here we go. Boom. So let's do this. Let's do whole screen on that. Okay, cool. So here's a text exchange. I pulled it and had it transcribed because I've accidentally dimed people out before or shown too much information, and I want to keep these people anonymous. These are clients of mine who've had this exchange. So I'm just going to share with you guys a couple of text exchange. You'll notice that I'm going to show you one short one, a logistics only situation that worked out. Both of these worked out just fine. All right. But I'll show you how they kind of go. Right. All right. So first one is this text exchange. Starts off with cute. What's his name? All right. So this is off of an app, I believe, one of the dating apps. And so he says your puppy in parentheses. Okay. Her response is Scooby was the dog's name. Him is LOL, get GTFO. Is he a ghost hunter who drives a mystery van and likes snacks? Her, LOL, yes. Okay, let's analyze his opener. His opener wasn't hey, and it wasn't a compliment. So he just differentiated himself from 75% of everyone that drops her an opener. Okay. His opener was referencing a photo, referencing a dog, which is a point of interest of hers. Most of the time, pets are points of interest. Some I talk about in the seduction group. We get more in depth of ways of drawing out conversation and getting her emotionally bought into the conversation and finding, the being able to nail the right topic right away. But pets are an easy one. So, just commenting on her pet and all that, most girls, starting with that, they'll have a conversation. And then of course he maxes his profile out. So he does look as attractive as he can. And so, then he's sort of comical here, right? Is he whatever? She's LOL, yes. So she's being drawn into the conversation. So notice it starts off with this little comment. Okay, cool. She likes people talking about my dog. She's curious. This is a curiosity on her. She's not pouring her heart out. She's a little bit curious about this dude, and she's responding to his messages, which most guys are getting ghosted. All right. Now, if he started off with, hey, or whatever, some opener, hey, your dog looks cool. What's his name? Scooby. Hey, cool. I have dogs too. You know what? We should go get a drink sometime. Had he started with that, he probably would have gotten ghosted, or, there's a good chance this wouldn't have gone anywhere. It would have got into a ghosted response or a rejection because she's just not emotionally bought in enough yet for the meetup. All right. And so more conversation has to happen. Now, you could ask right away and get blown out right away and then continue the conversation with a, and then a reopener later and build up some more emotional buy-in and then eventually get, okay, the date. That can happens a lot, then that's okay too. But most of the time though, these conversations are not logistic only questions. All right. Guys who are meeting up with girls that are attractive, right, that were born after 1990, that's just not the way this is going. So we'll keep it going here. So she's like, LOL, yes. And then he's, well, it sounds like we have a lot in common. By we, I mean your dog and I. So kind of he's being funny, a little bit of a neg, but not quite a neg, right? Not the right way to do a neg, not sort of the wrong way. He's not really negging her. He's just talking about, that we have, me and your dog and I have a lot in common, right? Which leaves her to question her. She's LOL, you're pretty funny. I like that emoji. And then she says, and getting along with my dog is a requirement, with a wink, of course, trying to get him to qualify to her. So here's how he handles that little shit test. He goes, LOL, well, damn, I'm so confident that he'll like me that we might as well skip right to the divorce and custody agreement. I'll be seeing you later today when I pick up Scooby for my weekly visitation. So he handles this little shit test. Oh, getting along with my dog is a requirement. A lot of guys would start simping. Oh, I love dogs and I always get along with dogs, blah, 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 right? He instead takes it not seriously, a little bit funny. So she's laughing, right? And then he leaves the conversation. That's it. Okay. I don't know why. I can't remember because this is, again, a client from some time ago. He was talking to other girls, he was setting up. He's not the only girl he's talking to. She was pretty attractive, and all that, but, so were the other girls. And so he lets the conversation go. She laughs. She doesn't continue with a response. So he decided that was a good time to just like let it go. Okay. And so then, which this demonstrates his value now. He has now differentiated himself from the pack. They've learned a little bit about each other. He's inspired curiosity in her. He's inspired some investment in her because there's this little bit of exchange, right? And he's also using fantasy by talking but by using comedy. There's fantasy there. When I say fantasy, I don't mean like the fantasy of growing old together, living on a house on the hill, though that can be a one form of fantasy. It could be doing crime together, robbing a bank. It could be, we go through the relationship and now we're dealing with our divorce, right? Like, and yeah, some would say, okay, that's negative, but he's doing it in a comical way, right? And so building this fantasy up, you know what I mean? It gets her kind of in a head frame of, having been sort of together or getting in a togetherness situation with him, it works. And so he reopens her. No, she opens him now the next day because she's now curious about him. And she's like, you never came to see Scooby. So he dropped off, which made her question, well, what's my value here? Right. Like, and it wasn't because he was trying to manipulate her or something, but that's just what happened. So she jumps on. It's like, she, the next day, you never came to see Scooby, and then a little cry face, right? She's trying to engage him in conversation. She's curious. She has some investment. All right. She's got this sort of fantasy. She's been thinking overnight. And since this conversation, probably after stalking his profile, what it might be like to hang out with this dude. Right. So he responds, look, blank. That was her name. All right. Edit it out. You knew I was a deadbeat dad when I think it's supposed to be, yeah. You knew I was a deadbeat dad when we had our night of fun. So I blame you. Now that's kind of, he cleverly says that it's a joke about him being a deadbeat dad. It's a little disparaging. He's joking. So he pivots into LMFAO, but for real, how is your day going? All right. So he says something funny, pivots. She responds to the funny thing. Okay, well, you're late on child support too, or whatever, little laugh face. And then she goes with the pivot. Day's going good, slow, and kind of boring. You, question mark. Him, busy as usual, but good. You said slow. So what is it that you do? So what he's doing is the way I train my guys to do this, okay, is he's pivoting to other topics. And I have an acronym to help the guy out with what those topics might be, but he's knowing when to pivot and change topics, knowing when to be funny or when to be harsh or when to be, a little bit of a bad boy, we'll say, but without over sexualizing and without going in a wrong direction. But each time he's building some fantasy there about what it would be like to banter with him in person, to be with him, to be sitting in a car with him, to be, in the fantasy joke situation of him meeting up to go see the dog, right? Or whatever. So he's building a little fantasy. There's curiosity. She's wondering about the guy. And as she responds and has these conversations, she starts to feel more invested. And so now she is getting more emotionally bought in to do a meetup with this dude. And so by the time they meet up, it's going to be a hell yes scenario versus a scenario where she decides not to show up or she cancels the last minute or whatever, right? And so now he keeps moving on. So he's like busy as usual. You said slow. What do you do? I work at, and she named so she worked in retail, so some clothing store. He's like, no shit for the discounts. Hurry for the discounts. When do you get off? Question mark. Her 6. Let's liven your day up. Drinks after. She says, I can't today. So now after some emotional buy-in from her, he goes for the close, but doesn't quite work out this time. That's okay. It was a smooth transition into a close. She says, I can't today. He says, sure you can. Don't be a pussy. All right. So it's stuff like that's funny. It's demonstrating that he's not nervous around her. Right. And he can be funny and whatever, be himself. And he's not trying to be, overwhelmed by her attractiveness or anything weird. She says, LOL, no, I can't today. Right. So then that was it. So then that conversation drops off. And I think it was like a weekend. Okay. So the weekend happens. He does his weekend. Remember, he's dating other girls too, talking to other people, doing his own thing as a guy. 5 days later, he hits her up. So this demonstrates once again that he's high value. He's not blowing up her phone. He's certainly not developing a relationship with her. He's not trying to do all of the things that the texting is for logistics only, quote unquote, tries to illustrate, you know what I mean? He's, tries to not illustrate, but tries to get you to not do, right? He's not doing all of the bad things he shouldn't be doing over text. What he's doing is he's building up this buy-in for her to want to hang out with him. So 5 days later, what up? Question mark, working. She responds like 15 minutes after that. Out with girlfriend, text later, question mark. Yeah, hit me up later today. So when he says hit me up later today, what he does, which is different than what he did last time, which is fine, right? He reopened, is he gives her the phone number for her to text on his phone. So what this does is he has to, or she is being given some instructions, right? Text me by the end of the day. She's like, and by the way, use my number, which means I'll have your number. So he's testing that investment. He's taking it to another step besides just keeping it this, dating app conversation. All right. Which is good. He's requiring her to do more, and causes more investment. All right. All right, so early evening, over the text and not the app, she says hey, right, over on his phone. He responds with a hey. Then he's like, "How was your time with your friend?" She's like, "Good. One of my besties. We had lunch. What WYD? So what are you doing?" Him just waiting by the phone for some cute girl to text me, and then he put some GIF with some guy, like I think it was like sweating or something like that, but he was obviously kidding around, right? And so she's like, "Oh, LOL, yeah, who's the girl?" Him, just my regular booty call. We were married once, but now we just bang. We have a dog together, but I'm kind of a deadbeat dad, so I miss all the visit. All I miss visits all the time and don't pay child support. So he's referencing previous conversation, right? He's being comical, but he's also a sexual framework now, right? This is his regular booty call, you see. So there's a bit of a sexual framework there without being overtly sexual or perverted, and it's done in a comical way. All right. So her, LOL. Well, you sound like my kind of guy. Let's have. I think she meant to say have. Let's have sex. And then she texts, a double text. LOL. Totally kidding. Please don't get weird on me. All right. So she's buying into the sexual framework, joking with him too. But then she's so used to weirdos, guys getting weird on her, right? Over probably meetups, texts, everything else, because there's tons of weirdos out there. She gets a little nervous or whatever, a little anxious. He just goes, LOL, you're not, but don't worry. Don't put on, I don't put out on the first date. All right. So kind of a joke there, right? I don't put out at least until the third date and only if he's good. Him, he's like, same. So, then he, a next text, he goes, so are you ready to knock 3 dates out all at once and then get dominated into next week or what? So he's having a sexual framework with her, not overtly perverted, not overtly gross, right? Calculated, funny, cool. She's, laughing about it too. And they're having this conversation. She sends this gif of like this gingerbread person, I think, taking like a ginger, like, I don't know, being whatever. Oh no, kind of a thing. She's like, no, I'm scared. LOL. He's like, LOL, don't be scared. Laugh face. Let's just meet up. Let's just start with one meetup and see how that goes first. Her, okay. Him, what time can you meet up? Her, I'm home, but already dressed and can head back out. Where do you want to go? So he asked, what time do you want to meet up? That's a pretty good way of asking, because it could have been what time next week, what time 2 days from now, what time tomorrow. He left it open so that she could actually give him some availability, right? Pretty good technique there. And she was referring to that evening. Now, in your scenario, whatever, you might not be able to meet up that evening. If that was the case, he would then be like, can't tonight, which is good. If he has to say no to her, that demonstrates his value. It's not a bad thing. But then he offers, let me know what other time this week can you be free, and then they set that date up, right? So now he's moving into logistics. She's all ready to meet up now. Okay, where do you want to go? He names a place. He says, tell me if that's close enough. I think it's close to where you work, because remember, she told him where she worked at some retail place. I only need like 10 minutes. How soon can you get there? She's like 30. Him, 30 is good. See you soon, whatever. So that is that text exchange there. All right. So notice what happened there. I'm gonna not let me get off this share screen scenario here. Okay, notice what happened there, right? Okay. Is that she noticed that there was time and several conversations that it took before he got her out. Now, there's other scenarios, which I'm going to share with you, another scenario where it's much shorter. By the way, I will say, because now geomaxing is popular, for those of you guys who geomax, you're probably going to have much shorter conversations. If you're traveling, if you're doing if there's time constraint, you're going to have much shorter conversations. But basically, you're going to be meeting with girls who are also time constrained usually, or more or less just DTF. And when you're geomaxing, like guys go to other countries, well, if you're a white dude, right? If you're an American dude and you're in, let's say, Mexico, yeah, girls are just going to meet up with you. If your profile looks good enough, You know what I mean? There isn't going to be a lot of resistance there a lot of times. Okay. Now, not all these girls are like the high quality women that you want to have babies with, but you're going to get dates, right? When you go, if you go to the like some places, you know, depending on if you're American or you're European or whatever, you go to Philippines or Thailand or some of these places, it's not that you don't have to have game. It's just, but you're going to get a lot more responsiveness on some of these apps and whatever. All right. But for most cases, though, you're not going to get this high buy-in without some conversation. And it may take several reopeners, either her reopening or you reopening for you to get there. It's amazing to me, these guys who seem to think that, you know, they're just going to have these logistical conversations and these girls are going to follow all over them. They're either lying, bullshitting, not having sex with real women, okay, which is often usually the case, and they're full of shit and they're trying to coach, or they are getting some success, but they're not getting the level of success that they could be getting because they're not really following good text game, you know. And texting is for logistics only is not good text game. And most guys who say that don't even do it. They usually have some little bit of banter to get to the meetup. You know, it's got to be there. So your choices are, you could be good at it or you could be bad at it, right? Like time to be maybe good at it. So let me show you another quick example. Let's go into another share screen here. Back to this. We'll share that screen. And so let's go into, okay, here's a short text exchange. You'll notice the difference. So I'm not saying that you don't do mostly logistic. If you can get away with that, sure. In this case, though, they had met in person. He was from out of town and she was on vacation, right? So they're both from out of town going somewhere. All right. And so they're going to somewhere where lots of people travel to. And so the chances of a girl hooking up with a dude when she travels is like much, much higher, right? So from the meetup, they did a phone number exchange, it looks like. So she put her name in his, he texted her his name. Okay. So the next day, late morning, he texts her, how are you feeling this morning? She responds with a little rough, but good. And then he says, well, I want to see you again before I go. I fly out tomorrow. So they already spent time and met in person. Probably shared a few drinks, a few laughs, maybe some flirting. Maybe they even made out, right? Now he's sticking to the point, getting to a time constraint. Well, I want to see you again before I go, being very direct. I fly out tomorrow. That's good game here because in theory, she should already be bought in for wanting to meet up with the guy. If they had a good, attraction from the meetup, there's a good chance of that. Plus, he's in a time constraint, so he has no reason. Like, there's no reason to try to drag this out. If he gets blown out, he gets blown out. He has to do a higher volume if he's trying to hook up on vacation. You know what I'm saying? And so this scenario, it's kind of like, are you in or you out? Because I leave tomorrow, right? That's different than somebody who is more like lives in your general area. You met on a dating app. She lives 30 minutes away from you, right? That might take a little bit more time because a girl who is, meeting up with guys in her local area, she's going to be more concerned about things like her reputation, stuff like that. She might meet up with a guy covertly, bang him, and then not call him back, right? That could happen, right? But I mean, at any rate, she's going to be, her urgency is not going to be as high when she's at home as if she's on vacation. And same with the guy, right? So this could be the scenario. So anyways, he just gets right to the point, very direct. It's good text game. Her response, well, I'd like to see you again too. Let me get with my girlfriends. I'll text later. She gives him a little kiss emoji. Him, cool. He's done texting her now. He's not wasting his time with her anymore. But she happens to hit him up, probably because she went out and didn't see anything better and appeased her girlfriends or did whatever she was planning to do for that particular evening while she was on vacation. She now is thinking about this dude after this. She's thinking about the meetup, the quick conversation that was direct to the point. And she's like, you know what? I'm horny. I want to have sex. I'm going to hook up with this dude. She hits him up at 1:30 in the morning with a hey. He's like, hey. She's like, are you up? Smiley face. He's like, I was wondering when you were going to text me. Come over. She's like, okay. And then she's like, I'll Uber over. You're staying at blank hotel. So she remembered from a conversation where he was staying. Him gives the number, gives the address, the GPS link, so she can just click on it, have a GPS link. He said, glad you remembered. See you soon. She says, okay, I'm calling you Uber right now. So she ends up hooking up with him, meets up with him that night. Okay, so this is a short, logistics only situation. But she was out the door, was going to get blown out. If he had gotten blown out, it's not a big deal. You know what I mean? And so that's how that goes. So sometimes it is logistics, but why does that work? It works once again because her emotional buy-in is already there. Either you're looking like a 1% of the population with your profile, which is most of you guys are not, okay, or you've met her already in person or connected with her and had a face-to-face conversation with her, and there was attraction and stuff already there. You exchange contact information for the express purposes of going and hanging out, spending time later. You were clear about that. She clearly understood that, wanted that before you broke contact. Then you're just opening with a text, setting the date up. That's the best way, in my opinion, which is why I like, face-to-face meetups or whatever. I personally like just gaming a person and meeting them face-to-face rather than over the internet. But let's face it, most of you guys are meeting women that you meet up with over the internet first. And so if that's the case, you're going to have some text conversations. It's going to, and depending on her profile, her makeup, everything she's doing, you're going to have to, have that nuance. And if you are a dude who knows how to date women, you don't care about this. You have the conversation and then you go on with about the rest of your life. And maybe you reopen her, maybe she reopens you. And as you continue this sort of thing, you just move the emotional buy-in along into a point where she is ready to meet up. And some girls will meet up with you after one exchange. Some girls take a lot longer. It just depends on their situation, depends on their psychological makeup. I've had girls. So my girl, I'll use my girlfriend as an example. Okay. My girlfriend and I had 3 weeks of texting back and forth before we actually met up. Now I've been with her for a year. Okay. And any of you guys who are on my social media, you see that she's very, very pretty. Okay. So this is somebody who is a very, we'll say, high SMV in terms of, her looks and her characteristics. All right. She's high up there. But she had her own anxiety and she had her own concerns about meeting up with me. And it was a 3-week conversation. In my past, I've had, and it was off and on, not like 3 weeks of just building a relationship over text per se, but there was quite a bit. Actually, we had communicated quite a bit, probably the most I had communicated with somebody before a first meetup. I actually don't recommend that and don't usually do that, but this was a special case. And because it really is about the person you're with and the relationship or the situation that you're in, you can't follow dumb rules. You have to actually know how other people operate, have good game, and know when to adjust and how to adjust accordingly. I've had girls meet up with me on very little, texting and just connecting over social media, meet up with me like in an hour of just a quick text exchange. I've had that. I've had girls take a couple of days. I've had girls reject and then reopen me later. I mean, it's all guys who are actually go on dates with real women know how this shit works, and it's all over the map. Every girl has her own situation. Every girl has her own set of concerns. Every girl has her own things going on that day. You can't sit here and arrogantly and egotistically think that you're so important that you're just going to send over logistical information or have a quick little, an opener and a joke or a haha, and then a quick close, and now we're logistics. And if it doesn't turn out that way, then she's not wanting to meet up with you, or she's not bought in, or whatever. She's not a hell yes girl, whatever the languages you're using. That's bullshit. You're not fucking dating women, dude. Like, you're not out there doing things. You don't know how to date women. You don't know how to get women that are hot. If that's what you think it's going to be like, it's not what it fucking is like. And guys who even say that it's like that are not. Like, I look at their examples and it's like, no, you had several conversations before you met up. What are you talking about? Right? So you guys who are a little bit less experienced and who aren't doing as well, I don't want you to sit here and think that and follow this kind of advice and think that this is how it should go. It's not how it should go necessarily. There is no should here. If you want to have good quality dates, meetups, whatever you want to call it, you want to have good quality women in your life, you want to have good experiences, whether it's just casual or whether it is something more serious, you have to make real connections with people. You have to learn game, and it's not going to be the same thing every time. And it's not going to be some rule like logistics only, blah, blah. All right. So that's it. I'm going to close. I'm way late and now I'm pushed back a lot, but hopefully that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. Okay. And think about the real person at the other end of this. It doesn't mean getting overly emotionally invested in somebody that you're not in a relationship with, but it just means like treating other people like human beings and learning about what their motivations are, what makes them tick, and what would make them want to even meet up with you, and knowing how to connect with that person and increase their interest or emotional buy-in in meeting up with you. So texting is not just for logistics only. Texting is for getting the meetup, and getting the meetup means getting her emotional buy-in or interest and desire to meet up with you high. That is what it's for. All right. So now get out there and have some fun. I'm glad we solved this problem for you. Don't forget to click my other links. Take care.